before we get to the football of the weekend, one of the biggest stories of the day that circulate in the Mirror, the Daily Mail, and a few others. We know that Man United are looking to sell a number of players. There could be up to between 3 to 5 players leave this January. As it stands, potentially Rashford, Garnacho's head, Xerxes looks a real possibility to leave, along with Casemiro and some others. But a name that's emerged, and maybe earlier than United fans expected, but I suppose situations dictate, is that United are set, if they can raise the money, to put in a bid somewhere in the region of 80 million euros for Victor Gyökeres. I want to throw this out there. Is that the type of signing Man United need right now to help improve this team, which we all know we're struggling? We all know Man United are in a bad situation. Would Xerxes out, Casemiro leaving, and someone like Victor Gyökeres coming in, is that the type of business United have got to do now?
It's one of the deals that they've got to do, because you need goals. Like, you're not scoring, and he obviously has a fantastic record under your manager. So it's one of the deals, but I don't think it fixes everything. It might just soften.
Isn't there like limited transfer budget as well? Like, I haven't, due to the PSR situation, all the reports always say United have never got any money, and then they go out and spend the money. But isn't there like a genuine problem with the fact you've got to raise funds before you?
Yeah, let's just, what we'll do, we'll address that bit to begin with. Yes and no. Ineos will continue to plead poverty even when there is money, but there are some problems. But it's more about moving players on before we can bring people in. Not because of the transfer fees per se, it's the salaries. You've got to think, if Rashford and Casemiro were to leave, as an example, that's nearly £700,000 a week saved in salary. There's talk that Anthony could be on his way to Real Betis. That's another 150,000 a week saved. You actually think someone like Gyökeres, they're anticipating he'll come in on about 180. So you just think about signing 3 or 4 players, not in January on that kind of money. For getting rid of 2 big money earners, you could bring in 3 or 4 players. So I do think we have to move some people on. But the idea that there's £0, that's pretty much said about Man United every single transfer window, and we always spend. So I don't personally believe it to that extent. But Gyökeres as a player, Henry, do you think that could be someone that could help drag United out of this? I'm going to say it, this relegation battle the media says we're in.
Yeah, 100%. He's got his goal record in Europe and in Liga Portugal. He's very good. He's obviously played in the Championship as well, so he knows what the intensity of English football is like. I think he would do well, but you're in a position right now where you need someone to come in and have immediate impact. And I think he may take a bit of time to adapt to the Premier League. There was a lot of optimism when Xerxes come in. Now he's getting absolute pelters from the fans. I think he should definitely be high on the priority list, but it's not the priority for me. Man United need midfielders. That midfield of Casemiro and Eriksen together can never, ever play ever again. Like, they just don't have the legs.
In world football, not even just at Man United.
Yeah, facts. I'll be honest. I think that is the worst central midfield pairing in the league that I've seen this season. They don't have the legs. Like, they're okay on the ball. Eriksen's a decent passer, but Newcastle looked at that with Joelinton, Bruno, and Tonali, and it was like, yeah, this is going to be easy. You need someone like alongside Kobe who's got legs, who can run and dictate games. I don't think if you've got a sell to buy, spending 70, 80 million euros on Victor Gyökeres, as good of a signing as it would be, shouldn't be the priority.
I get that. Go on, Phil.
Just on how exposed your defense is as well. Like that midfield, yeah.
No, but at the end of the day, it's one story. There is obviously, we don't know if Man United haven't got midfielders lined up already. Like, so it's not to say that he's, just because the story came out, that he's necessarily the priority. They could be keeping their irons hot in a number of different transfer deals. I think in and of itself, as the deal, 80 million. It's not it will never be a financial concern at the moment for Man United. My only concern would be is, like Henry pointed out, you've tried Xerxes, you've tried Højlund, so you try to go young and talented, and it hasn't worked out. My question is, why are the scouts not picking? And I know that you can't get, relatively between 30 to 50% chance of success rate in terms of scouting and recruiting successful players. But this is, this could be the third now striker that your scouting team, department, whoever's kind of working out is getting it wrong. Like, why? And therefore, has that been fixed now that you are looking at Victor Gyökeres? Because that is a huge sum in of itself. But
no, I agree with that element. And I said this before we went on the stage. I'm going to try my best in the coming months to not give too many opinions on Man United when I'm asked questions, because it's often, as I say, it's quite loaded. If one of the reports, well, multiple reports though that I've read, not from yourself, Phil, just in general, but what I've read in the last couple of weeks is the reason why Dan Ashworth was sacked is a few people have said recently Ineos don't know how to run a football club. And I agree. I don't think any of the billionaires that own our football clubs know how to run football clubs directly. They have to bring people in that are experts. Ineos made a mistake. They went for Dan Ashworth, who has a good pedigree, and Dan Ashworth's decision. And if anyone thinks he didn't start work until June, you're a fool. You never had a real job in a big organization if you think a senior person on gardening leave doesn't start implementing what they want and giving direction early. It happens as regular as clockwork. He made the decision. It's been very well documented that we're going to build a structure for Ten Hag, which I would say 50 to 60% of Man United fans at the ground and online supported. Give Ten Hag a structure and he will deliver. They brought him in some coaches that would understand him. They brought in players like Xerxes that he wanted. They brought in individuals that would work for him. I think some of the signings are kind of multifaceted. I can see already Mazza can work in multiple systems. I think Yoro's got the technical ability to work in multiple systems, so that they're fine. But a player like Xerxes, it does appear now more so than ever, was a not Ten Hag specific, but this is the brand of football that Dan Ashworth and the club said we're going to stick with. We've already got the coach for it. They felt that it would be a less expensive rebuild of the squad because they could just build upon what they'd already started. That's the mistake. As opposed to Xerxes is a sort of symptom of that mistake, if that makes sense. We should never have done that. The decision should have been what the other 30, 40% of us was asking for, and that's get rid of the head coach, try something completely new, strip everything back to basics and start again. Sometimes life's just a little bit easier when you do that. So I do agree that it's a terrible look for Man United to have signed Højlund and it hasn't worked to the level we want. It's a terrible look to have Xerxes come in and come January be moved on. However, if the reports are now true that we are completely changing the style of football and 80% of this squad isn't fit for purpose, I don't care whether they came in the summer or 8 years ago. If you can't fit it and there's offers for them, we just got to start moving them out now. The only thing I'm hopeful of, and I can only be hopeful because I'm not the one doing it, is that the new recruits are as close to perfect profiles to what we're trying to build moving forward. Because Man United's biggest problem in the last 11 years, all banter aside, is that we have never stuck to a particular system that needs a certain type of player. We've never done that. It's been a year with this guy, 2 years here, 18 months with this manager, 3 years here. And we've ended up with these horribly constructed squads that have never really been good enough to create a consistent style of football and create consistent results. So,
Terry,
sorry, go on, mate, go on.
I should interject on that in terms of Dan Ashworth, because I'm going to risk not kind of being annoying, but in terms of just understanding what maybe Man United fans and content creators' perception of what they think Dan Ashworth does. Because we understood here when he was at Newcastle is that he's not the type of sporting director that's there to scout, to profile players. He doesn't even like to negotiate deals. That's one of the reasons that frustrated us. So he's not like, for instance, we've got Paul Mitchell there. He's flying out, doing deals. Like Dan Ashworth, he literally described himself as the spoken between the wheel. So he connects all the departments, similar to what he did at Brighton. Brighton had a great kind of stats gambling-based system where they could profile players, and then they had great scouts themselves. They needed someone to connect that together and coordinate it in a way where they can regularly and consistently get good players in, like what they're doing now. That's what Dan Ashworth does. Don't ask Dan Ashworth to negotiate deals, to profile, to scout.
I agree.
But what I'm kind of feeling and sensing, and it's just, I know I'm not saying it's concrete, but I'm kind of playing with the idea at the moment, was I feel like a lot more of weight has been put on Dan Ashworth. We got these deals because of Dan Ashworth. We got Ten Hag stayed because of Dan Ashworth and all these other things. But it's...
So that's a great chat. I agree with you. I don't think he does all of the day-to-day operations within that. But what was very well documented when we were negotiating for him is that he was going to be the person that dictated the brand of football we played and the type of football that we were going to operate in. So ultimately, if you're deciding on there's no way you decide to play the brand of football that Amorim dictates. There's no way Dan Ashworth said, this is what we're going to do to bring your vision to life. And then they decide to keep Ten Hag. For me, you decide to keep Ten Hag because whatever, I don't know what you call his brand of football. I don't have a name for it.
So who did you want though? Who did you want in the summer then? Because
I didn't personally care. So for me, I wanted Ten Hag to go.
Like, who do you think Man United wanted? Like, who do you think was the number one candidate? If it was Amorim.
So this is what was well documented in the summer is, and I actually think this is a healthy thing for any business, is there was debate. So not everybody that was brought in by Ineos. So from Barada, Ashworth, Wilcock, there was different views. Some were for Ten Hag, some were against it as an example. But ultimately, the sporting director was given a large percentage of control in that. Barada, who was the CEO, but again, yes, he's a CEO, but that's overlooking multiple areas of the business, not just the football operation. He was more towards Amorim as an example. For me, I never felt that was particularly important. I felt that we had to start again from scratch. That was more key for me. I didn't really care what direction we went in from there, as long as we maintained the level of consistency from that point. I have my personal preference, of course, but I can be objective in that. If we decided to go down a sort of an old school Jose Conte route and build really strong, quick, pragmatic teams, fine, stick to it. I didn't mind if we tried to do what we're doing now, as long as we stick to it for a prolonged period. And I think LB said this on Straight Facts in the summer, and he was absolutely spot on that keeping Ten Hag is probably going to set the club back a year. And that's what it's done, because we're only now starting to do what we should have done in the summer, and it's just a waste, really. So no, I listen, I agree, and I have more concerns now than I did in the summer because we've seen a mistake, and I'm worried about another one. But I can't condemn a mistake yet that hasn't happened. So we will see. In terms of Gyökeres, look, I think he's a phenomenal striker. I really do, and I do get your point, Henry, about midfield and other areas. What I would say is this: if you look at the defeats we've had in the last few weeks, defensively we've got to shape up. There's no doubt about it. But the amount of chances and simple chances we've missed in those games, I actually think we could have turned some of those results around had we had a prolific goal scorer and or somebody. So I'm not stating that we don't need to address midfield. I'd like, if I had a magic wand, I'd love to go and get Gyökeres, Kirkes, and and Belieber. If I could sign 3 players right now, realistic, good age profile, give me a left back, give me a midfielder, give me a striker, that would be ideal. Edison's a great point. I don't think he's available because of their title race. But yeah, if he was, I like him. For me, the reason why I think if we can get him now, I think we should move for Gyökeres is I think even more clubs are going to want him in the summer. And if we could strike early and stop a Chelsea, stop a City, stop a Liverpool or somebody else getting him, I would love that. But I do agree 100%. Just signing him doesn't fix Man United. Any Man United fan that thinks, right, we're sorted now, you're crazy. I'll keep saying this till the cows come home. This is a 3 to 4 year long, hard process to strip this squad, to build a new one and create consistency. It was never, ever going to become brilliant in the first few months. Anybody that deluded themselves into thinking that is crazy. It's always going to be a long, hard road.
Yeah, so I have a question.